table. You're welcome here. You are not erased. You will find your place at this table. At this table.
Hi, welcome to VIRCH. I'm Dana, and this is The Table, a new, inclusive, and progressive Christian community in North County, San Diego. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm grateful that you're continuing this journey with us. For our second VIRCH experience, Reverend Chelsea and I are excited to introduce you to Chad McLain, one of our launch team members. Chad will share his faith journey with us today, along with the work that he's doing as co-creator of Virtual Pride and LoveUs.LGBT. You'll also hear from our wonderful musician Talip. Before we begin, I just want to take some time to center myself, and I invite you to also take this time with me to set the intentionality of the moment and ground ourselves in this space. So maybe just wiggle your toes, shrug your shoulders, relax your shoulders, relax your jaw, and just be present. Be present with yourself during this time. Be present with those who may be sharing this space with you. And most importantly, be present with God. May I suggest that we just gently close our eyes, and we'll take a couple of deep, cleansing breaths on a count of 3. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3. Exhaling for 3, 2, 1. Again, inhaling for 1, 2, 3. Exhaling for 3, 2, 1. And with our eyes still gently closed, just inviting God into this space with us, perhaps quietly saying to yourself, Lord, here I am. Please speak. Your servant is listening. Amen. We can gently open up our eyes, and once again, I thank you for joining us today, and now we'll hear from Talip.
Through the eyes of man, it seems there's so much we have lost as we look down the road where all the prodigals have walked. One by one, the enemy has whispered lies and led them off as slaves. But we know that you, oh God, yours is the victory. We know there is more to come that we may not yet see. So with faith you've given us, we step into the valley unafraid, unafraid. We call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. Up out of the ashes, let us see an army rise. 'Cause we call out to dry bones, come alive. God of endless mercy, God of unrelenting love, rescue every daughter, bring us back the wayward sons. And by your Spirit breathe upon them, show the world that you alone can save. You alone can save. 'Cause we call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. Up out of the ashes, let us see an army rise. 'Cause we call Breathe, oh breath of God, now breathe. Breathe, oh breath of God. Breathe, oh breath of God. Breathe, oh breath of God, now breathe. 'Cause we call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. Up out of the ashes, let us see an army rise. 'Cause we call out to dry bones, come alive. And we call out to dry bones, come alive.
Remember my affliction and my wanderings, the wormwood and the gall. My soul continually remembers it, and is bowed down within me. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. Lamentations 3:19-24.
Chad, I'm so glad that you have decided to be part of our second VIRCH experience. We've known each other 9-ish months
9 months.
now.
It feels like a lot longer than that.
It does feel like a lot longer, but you're a member of our 701, the Young Adult LGBTQ plus group.
Yes.
That we talk about faith once a week, and we're just so grateful to have you as part of the launch team of the table.
Thank you.
And just getting to know you and hearing your story, I just thought it'd be wonderful for the whole community to get to know you a little bit better as I've gotten to know you. But I thought what would be fun to do first is to do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Kind of we'll break the ice here with some, at the first thing that comes to your mind, just let us have it, all right?
Okay.
Okay. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Blowing my nose. So not other people blowing their nose, but blowing my nose. It just makes me self-conscious in public. So that's
That's your
something that
pet peeve?
blowing my nose in public. Yeah, it makes me so uncomfortable.
You might be the only one that has that pet peeve, but I love it. All right. Okay, this might answer that one. What is a weird quirk of yours?
Weird
Might be the
quirk.
blowing nose in public.
My go-to is that I drive a white Toyota Sienna minivan. I love it, and I think people are like, oh, like, does he actually think his van is cool? And I do. I love it. I
And
think
doesn't it have a name?
Pegasus.
Pegasus.
Pegasus, because that makes me Hercules.
There you
so.
go. There you go. All right. Okay, if you could treat yourself to one thing right now, what would it be?
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Strawberry ice cream.
Nice. On a hot day like today, right?
On a hot
Yeah,
day.
especially. Okay, when I dance, I look like...
Like I'm going to hurt myself, I would say. Which I realize is actually true because I tore my ACL the first song of Homecoming in high school.
Oh, so it's true.
Dancing, yeah.
Okay.
It's true.
Watch out. Okay, your favorite childhood TV show?
Tom and Jerry.
Okay, all right.
Or SpongeBob or Scooby-Doo.
Cartoons.
Cartoons.
Gotcha.
Still watch them.
In one word, how would you define happiness?
I've heard this a few times, but there's the which one, happiness and joy. I feel like happiness is something that I experienced on the drive over here, which is like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be doing this thing that makes me so excited. I'm gonna be with people that I love, and I'm gonna get to talk about a few things that have made me who I am, and that's something that makes me happy. But joy, for me, is also another form of happiness. It might be cliche to say like, oh, joy, but joy is unending, but I think it is important to say that it's sort of this ongoing feeling of goodness, and not necessarily this sort of toxic positivity of saying like, it's gonna be okay, everything's gonna work out, but just knowing that I am good, that others are good, and that we are doing our best. and that at the end of the day, God is good, and I'm going to see a sunset and the sunrise, and just having that grounding peace.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, last one. What impresses you?
Kindness, I would say. Especially if I get to, this is a little creepy, but every once in a while there'll be some situation that I'm the third person outsider, and I get to see two people and someone helping the other person in a way that is completely unexpected and totally out of their way. And just seeing that like small act from my observer view is like, whoa, it's something that makes me happy. Like I said earlier.
Yeah, great. Thanks for humoring me with some of those questions. That was a fun way to get to know a little bit more about you. But I'm curious if you could take us back and tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and your faith journey.
Okay.
Kind of what has led you to this point.
To this point,
Yeah.
standing here, sitting here.
Right.
I am born and raised in San Diego, North County, San Marcos.
You don't hear of that too much. Native California.
Native
San Diego.
California, yeah. And I grew up with a little brother. He's 2.5 years younger than me, Kenny, and my mom, Kathleen, and my dad, Bob. And we live in our little house in San Marcos and haven't moved. And I think that part of me, as I grew up, I got to see that there was a lot of people in my life that sort of had this view of, oh, this is one of the families that goes to church. Oh, this is the family with the mom, the dad, the 2 brothers, and the dog, and the white picket fence in the suburbs. And that was something that I think was hard for me to see from the outside, as my family was so important to me, and the things that we experienced and the things that we walked through that made us stronger and pulled us closer to God and each other. Were things that I think other people didn't get to see. And that's why I say, like, this small little town family, but also there was so much behind that that made me who I am today. And a few of those things that are really important to me are my mom has lupus SLE. So, yeah, an autoimmune disorder that she was born with, and it's genetic. And it's made her this warrior example for the family. And her motto has been smile. Just smile always, because that brings light into the world. And then my dad is a hard worker, and he just does things for other people, this sort of acts of service guy. So I grew up with like, oh, now we're going to go pull weeds, but we're going to pull weeds as a form of love for our neighbor. We're going to go do this. And that just taught me this sort of form of doing things for others and seeing the good that comes from that.
What 2 wonderful role models to have as you grow up. Acts of love and service and positivity, which I see in you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then my brother also was the little Tasmanian devil that would run around. And he has oh man, this is going to be fun to say. ADHD, he has ADHD and a learning disability. And so I got to grow up and see what it was like to have someone go through school in a way that was different than me, and see that there are other people in this world that might look like me, but on the inside are so different and live such different lives. And the way that I hear something could be so different from the way that he hears it. And so I got to see that with both my brother, my mom, my dad. And then another figure that I have to say in my journey that has made me who I am today is my grandma June and my Aunt Susan. My Aunt Susan was disabled and has cerebral palsy. And my grandma was the one that made cookies with me and would save shoe boxes so that I could build houses when I was little, and I would draw little figures on the inside. And so between all of those people in my family, I got to see different ways of loving someone that was different than you, different ways of loving others and loving God that was like a big hug.
What a beautiful expression of family and love and faith, and so much of it I can see in you now as an adult.
Thank you.
So you grew up going to church. The faith was important as you were a kid and into teenage years?
So that was a little bit of a wild journey. I heard from my parents that God was important, God was always going to be important. It was something that you believed in and that you did, and you went to church on Christmas and Easter, no matter what, because that is what you do and that's what's good. And so that's what I was brought up with. My great-grandfather was a minister. So it was sort of this like, God's important, but we're on this other side of it. And I went to a secular school, as they called it when I got older, and then asked my parents to move into a private Christian school when I got older, because my experience was, oh my gosh, this place is great, and I have some friends, but also I know that God is the biggest, God is the best, and God loves me. And I feel like if I stay with this group, that I want to be a good boy, and I want to love God. So I'm not going to do any form of partying. I'm going to be my goody two-shoes, and I want to go learn about Jesus and be happy. So thankfully, my parents said yes, and it's kind of a strange story that we toured around a bunch of different schools. I got hit in the face with a golf club at one, and there was so many different places I could have gone, but I remember driving on campus to Tri-City Christian in Vistas, where I went, and just being like, this is where I need to be.
How old were you when you made that change?
That was in high school.
Okay. And what kind of sparked that decision for you to make that change in your life at that time?
At that time? So a piece that I need to be honest about is that I did get bullied really intensely in middle school, and it was the same group of kids that I had grown up with all the way from kindergarten to 8th grade. And looking back, I think I have this like completely different mindset of grace and understanding than I did then. Now I look back and I'm like, oh, I was just different. We were just kids, and there's almost no way that they could have done anything differently based on who they were at the time and what their experiences were. I was some sort of alien who liked to stay in the art room at lunch and had so many friends that were girls and like laughing and drawing, versus sort of this like sports athlete that most of the guys were on campus.
Gotcha. And because of that, it was difficult.
It was difficult.
Yeah. So you decided to go to Tri-City Christian. What was that like for you? What was that experience?
So that experience was so different for me. I was completely welcomed in like I hadn't been before. I was suddenly this like, whoa, who is that? But in a way that wasn't. It was like, whoa, who is that? What can we learn about you? How can we be there for you? How can we be your friend?
Completely different.
Completely different. Yeah. And I transformed myself into this sort of sports jock somehow. I look back and I'm like, whoa. I played varsity volleyball and track and cross country, and I wasn't necessarily good, but I was on the team.
You were there.
And I was there.
For sure. Yeah, great. And then you graduated and you decided to go to Point Loma Nazarene University. Tell us about your experience when you were there.
So Point Loma was the same sort of feeling as Tri-City, which was, I'm at a crossroads in my life right now, and there's a lot of places I can go. There's a lot of things that I can be doing with my time and with the next few years ahead of me. And this feeling like there's so much space for that, and something that I know that isn't necessarily always good for me, but I always see good in the world, is when I choose to dedicate something in my life to God and say, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen, and I just know that it's going to be good, and it's going to be good for others. And so, God, here you go. And normally that's just like dead silence of like, hello, God, like, are you there? And the way that I've been received by God in those moments is just sort of this peaceful silence, like a hug. And then as I move throughout my day, I know it's different for everyone, but what has happened to me is that different people in my life that are close to me will say the same thing in different words. And the only way that I can connect it, that wild of a thread, is to something that God is trying to tell me. And then I just get a sense of peace about it too. So that for me was Tri-City, and that for me was also Point Loma.
It takes a lot of trust to throw your life choices out there and maybe be met with silence, but to really trust God. And it sounds like God has shown up for you time and time again through different threads in your life, different people in your life. I I really love the Bible verse that you chose that Annette read for us. I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit about why that verse is so important to you.
So this verse, I'm almost laughing because you're saying it so positively, and I'm loving it, but this was in a really hard time in my life that I received this verse. So Point Loma began for me as this Tri-City times 5, this sort of like, whoa, who are all these people? Let's all be friends at the same time, and let's do everything together and have so much fun and also go to class. And it was a big family. And then it slowly, as the years went on and I grew, I got into a smaller and smaller group of friends, and I got to be, I think, closer and closer to who I am and more raw and honest about like, oh, this is really my heart, and this is really what's going on in my life, and these are things that are happening. And so that verse that got read, Lamentations, was written to me in a letter by a close friend at a time when I said, I'm at a point now where my entire life I had believed with all my heart that God loved me and God wanted me and God needed me, but now I'm not sure. And that was directly related to my sexuality of being queer. Was this piece of me isn't something that is compatible. And so that letter was, ironically, Lamentations, I guess not ironically, but she was writing that to me to say, there are people that love you in the church, even though you don't know. And she said, this verse was given to me by someone in the church who told me the same thing when I needed to hear it.
You can tell how much it still resonates with you these years later, and how powerful that experience was for you. Yeah.
It was.
So you kind of touched on it when you were just sharing that beautiful story, but when has the church been challenging for you or difficult for you to be a part of?
So I think that I have come so far. Something that I've heard from other queer folks is it gets better. And I think there's even a campaign about it. And I remember years ago, in my teens, I had heard it once or twice, and I was like, that is such a weird thing to say, like, it gets better and you come and accept your identity. Like, that's not what I'm going to do. And honestly, I look back at 24 now, and I'm like, whoa, my life has gotten so much better. And I think a lot of that does have to do with God. Oh my gosh, I totally forgot your question. But,
you moved on to the next one, but...
I moved on to the next one?
That's
okay.
Great. I think it's great. Yeah, how has the church been a safe place for you, or a place that you have actively decided you want to be a part of? You know, and admit you've had challenges with the church. You have,
yes.
Struggled with where do you fit in God's family, and where does your relationship with God and the church, and but you've come to a place where you're actively saying, yes, I want to be a part of this. You're a part of the table and other faith communities and organizations. What about that is, why have you decided to?
I think it's been, as I have grown in my own life and the experiences that I've had, sort of this like, God's come back around for me in a way that gave me time and space that I needed. And a friend had recently said to me, I asked, like, what was the number one thing that it took for you to accept yourself and your identity? And she said, time, instantly. And I laughed, not only from her fast answer of time, but also because the journey of me saying like, oh, I like think I might like guys somehow, maybe not really, to being like, this is a piece of me and I love myself and I love this piece and I'm going to be okay and I know that it's good, was 8 years. So it was time for me also. And why I say time in relation to a community, a faith community, is because I there are a lot of really well-intentioned, really good-hearted faith communities across the world that really have experienced what it's like to interact with the creator of the universe. And when you have that, you just know. And you want to see it for everyone, and you want to see everyone's lives be changed and be this miraculous joy and happiness that we talked about earlier. And it was this realization that although some of these things can be really good intention, not everyone may know what the other side of that is. And sort of this understanding of just because this happened for me doesn't mean that it's the same for someone else. And being a queer person, sort of being that outside, that other, that isn't something that is, okay, how is this person feeling about the things that we're saying, about these scriptures, about the way that we're talking about it? It's just someone that wasn't thought of, a group that wasn't thought of in those spaces. So as I've grown older, I have found different communities in different spaces where queer people are important and are needed and are respected and are part of the table. And it's an entirely different feeling. While I've heard like this is just a small part of me and also like this is a huge part, I know that everyone has something in between, but just to know that it's respected and fully received by every single person at the table with you is just a huge breath of fresh air. And something that was said to me is, you don't know how long you've been holding your breath until you finally breathe. Wow. And so that's what that is for me, is a breathe, just to know everything's gonna be okay. Everyone may not understand, but everyone is there for you and loves you and wants to understand.
Yeah, that you are created in the image of God and accepted with all of you, you know? Yeah, beautiful. Well, I want to make sure that we talk about virtual pride by Love Us. I don't want our time to end before we're able to talk about that. Tell us a little bit, how did that come to be? How can we find out more information? How do we participate? But we'd like to know just what it is, you know?
So you can go to loveus.lgbt is our website and our Instagram account. This started in the midst of COVID, just starting to happen. I had the same friend that said to me, time is what I needed, called me up and said, hey, do you want to do a Zoom Pride with like 5 of our friends? And I went, absolutely, we have to do that. So we quickly realized, as the world took several turns, that one, maybe not the best idea, and 2, wait, actually, this is something that we care about so deeply that we're really well equipped to do. Why not do it now, and why not do everything that we can? And so what started as this sort of like fun little Zoom party ended up being, what can we give back from what we've been through and what we know is good, and people that we know can speak wonderfully into this space in a way that blesses other people.
How giving during, you mentioned COVID and all the that is happening in our world. What a bright light for people to look forward to and participate in. Chad, thank you so much for being here and for being so honest and vulnerable. Your story is such a blessing to hear and to get to be a part of. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
We would love for you to join us at our virtual happy hour this Saturday, July 11th at 5 o'clock. We'll meet from 5 to 5:30. We'll get an opportunity to sit down with Chad for another half an hour to ask him questions, get to know him better. So we'd love if you would grab a drink and join us on Saturday for virtual happy hour.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, oh, I won't be shaken, no, I won't be shaken, 'cause my fear doesn't stay stand a chance when I stand in your love, and my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love, and my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and shame no longer has a place to hide. I'm not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I won't be shaken. Oh, I won't be shaken. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love, and my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love, and my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's power that can break off every chain. There is power that can empty out the grave. There's resurrection power that can save.